Good morning, friends. Good morning. Good to be together this morning. Excuse me, let me beef that up, make that bigger. Awesome. Great to be together this morning, is it not, for our small group? PB Reads the Bible. I'm PB, Pastor Brian, pastor here at Christ United Methodist Church in Waynesboro, Pennsylvania. And this is a group where we gather together across distance and time with the miracle of modern technology. Woo. Um, I read a passage from the Bible. You follow along in your own, or just listen uh, to what I read, and then I try to share some thoughts, not only my own but from common other Bible commentators, as to what is actually taking place, what is being said, and what something means. You ask questions or share your comments as well, and we kind of go back and forth with that a little bit. And it's a wonderful opportunity for us to be together. We've been doing this for a couple of years now. Wow, getting close to three, because I'm pretty sure I started in December of 2020. And we've been going right through it. We've had breaks from here and there for a week or two at a time. And currently we are on Second Kings, and we are beginning with chapter 6 today. So if this is only the first or second time you've joined us, welcome. First of all, welcome. Second, you might, some of the stuff you hear, I think you'll get something out of it, even if it is your first time. But prior episodes are available on YouTube and Facebook, so feel free to look back and catch up, so to speak. We started this month and a half, 2 months ago, maybe probably 2 months ago at least. We started the beginning of First Kings. We did all of First Kings, and now we're partially through Second Kings. We decided to go straight through it. You know what? It's been more than 2 months, because we only do it at most 2 times a week. Tuesdays and Thursdays, my friends, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And yes, today is Tuesday, November 21st. So while you're checking in, because excuse me, while you're signing on here and checking in with us, please do that, and let me know who you are. Let me know that you're watching, that you're joining today, not watching, joining, that you're engaging with us in this fashion this morning. Use the comment section of the stream to tell me who's there, and to share greetings with one another, and to share what's on your hearts this morning, what it is that's giving you life, giving you joy, and what it is that's weighing you down, so that we can keep each other surrounded and lifted in prayer. Not only today, but every day. We try to keep each other surrounded in prayer in that fashion, and lay each other's requests and needs before our God. Normally we do this on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but Thursday, 2 days from now, of course, is Thanksgiving. So we will not be gathering together on Thursday. So after today, our next session, our next episode, our next gathering of our small group will be 1 week from today, Tuesday, November 28th at 9 o'clock. Excuse me. Now, I know not all of you were able to join at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday or a Thursday, and you're joining some other time. That's awesome. Still, please check in, or of course, anybody can send me a text, 570-351-1619. And yeah, you can send me a text about anything and virtually any time. Keep in mind, if it's like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, it's going to be a couple hours before I get back to you, because I'm probably not going to hear my phone chime or vibrate. So we'll be back after today. We'll be back together on Tuesday, 1 week today, Tuesday the 28th. Between now and then, of course, is Sunday, and we will have worship Sunday in person at 8:15 and 10:45. 10:45 is also live stream. So although I would love to have you in person and be together with us for either of those worship times, if you can't do it, please join us through the live stream, the live stream at 10:45, or some other time, because of course it is recorded. The Hartmans will not be able to join us today. They're going to have to do catch up and pick back up with us next week. That's fine. That's fine. John and Cindy will miss you today, of course, but we understand how things goes. Good morning, Marcia. Excuse me. Good to have you this morning, to be together with you this morning. And I see we have some more people out there, but they're not checking in. That's okay. That's okay. I don't keep attendance, so it's not like I'm going to give you demerits or anything like that. Oh, good morning, Maureen. Good morning on this Thanksgiving week. Yes, it is. Pray for safe travels for those that are traveling. Absolutely. And there are a lot of them. Wow. They started early. They started a few days ago, a full week beforehand. They were starting. Like they said, so many folks can work remotely that it doesn't matter, and you can take those extra couple days to be someplace. Fun stuff, great stuff. Anyway, so Sunday we're finishing up our worship series, The Faith of a Mockingbird, with our last session on that, our last worship experience built around that series, and we'll be looking at Boo Radley. Boo Radley will be our character that we're taking a closer look at and what we can do with that. And then in the afternoon, 3:00, we will be showing the film To Kill a Mockingbird in our church sanctuary. So we can't live stream that. We don't have those kind of rights and permissions to do. So if you want to join us, you do have to do that in person. Excuse me. All right, my friends, we're going to get to it because I'm going to try to do 2 chapters today. Okay, my plan, I'm not going to say try. We're going to do. There's no try. Do or do not. Right? Borrow from Yoda. We're going to read 2 chapters today. We're going to do chapters 6 and 7 of 2 Kings. A couple reasons. One, they're small-ish in length, short-ish in length. But the bigger reason is the chapter break is in a terrible place. It's right in the middle of a story. So the folks that picked out where to put the chapter breaks, they probably should have done one of a couple things. One, either not put one at all and just put 6 and 7 together, or they should have put a chapter break after verse 23, because 24 begins a story that has its conclusion, not even in the beginning of chapter 7, but at the end of chapter 7. So we're going to read chapters 6 and 7 this morning. If I want to do that, I better get going, right? All right, so here we go. Chapter 6, verse 1. Now the company of prophets, oh, sorry, I must have done something. Now the company of prophets said to Elisha, "As you see, the place where we live under your charge is too small for us. Let us go to the Jordan and let us collect logs there, one for each of us, and build a place there for us to live." He answered, "Do so." Then one of them said, "Please come with your servants." And he answered, "I will." So he went with them. When they came to the Jordan, they cut down trees. But as one was felling a log, his axe head fell into the water. He cried out, "Alas, master, it was borrowed." Then the man of God said, "Where did it fall?" When he showed him the place, he cut off a stick and threw it in there and made the iron float. He said, "Pick it up." So he reached out his hand and took it. Pause. We're going to pause there because that's the end of this story, right? So what's taking place? What's happening? So it's talking about the company of prophets, or also can be translated almost literally sons of the prophets. We can presume a group of prophets who are Elisha's disciples. They're following him, they're helping him, they're learning from him. Okay. The business of prophetic business, so to speak. We can also presume that they're poor. they're not really getting paid anything for the things they're doing. Now the Hebrew word that is or phrase, we might be a better place. The NIV translates it, the place where we meet with you is too small for us. Elisha, or sorry, the NRSV says the place where we live under your charge is too small for us. Very similar, right? Very similar. And sounds like the building, the location. That's right. Literally in Hebrew, it can be translated, the place where we live under your charge. So in other words, where they are, I'm sorry, the place where they were sitting before him is the literal Hebrew. I read the wrong note. The Hebrew can be translated literally to mean the place where they were sitting before him as his disciples, learning at his feet, kind of thing. Oh, gosh. But they have this idea, let's move over near the Jordan River, a different area. We can fell some of the trees there. We'll be close to water. We can build the shelter using those trees. And Elisha agrees, and he even agrees to go along when they ask him. Now, we have this crisis. Doesn't sound like a crisis to us, but it is. One of these disciples of Elisha's, while felling a tree, while chopping something down, the axe head falls off. So, and it's borrowed and it falls into the water. Now, we might say, why is this so terrible, right? The owner of the axe should have been more careful, should have been on there better, et cetera, et cetera. And it's only an axe. It's only an axe head. You can buy them very cheaply, right? Today, not so much. So long ago, approximately 2,700 years ago, 27, somewhere between 27 and 2,800 years ago. Not so then. Excuse me. Not so then. Iron was rare throughout Israel and would be a very precious commodity, probably more precious than gold, right? That kind of thing. Iron is very, very precious, very valuable, very expensive. Since it's borrowed, it's his responsibility to get it back to the person he borrowed it from. He lost it, it's his responsibility to make good on it and to buy a new one. Presumably he can't, because the tool is very expensive, they're very poor. So he's not going to be able to. So this truly is a crisis. And his reaction, alas, father, or master, sorry, alas, master. It was borrowed. Elisha is concerned about this individual, this one person. It's not too little for him to do something to help one person. So he miraculously gets the iron axe head to float. The prophet disciple is able to retrieve it from the river and will then be able to return it to the person he borrowed it from. So it's all good. It's all good. Different story, but also a miracle tale regarding Elisha. Once, when the king of Aram was at war with Israel, he took counsel with his officers. He said, at such and such a place shall be my camp. Now, we might think of a camp as just a place that they're going to sit and be protected and safe, but it has more to do with this is where we're going to be raiding. This is where we're going to attack by moving to this place. That would be a better way of understanding it. Picking up from there, verse 9, but the man of God sent word to the king of Israel, take care not to pass this place, because the Arameans are going down there. The king of Israel sent word to the place of which the man of God spoke. More than once or twice, he warned such a place so that it was on the alert. Pause. So Elisha knew the plans of the king of Aram, knew where he was going to be setting up camp, where he was going to attack from. And he sent a message to the king, who then sent a message to that community to take guard, to retreat, to leave, to stay away from that area. And it happened more than once. It happened, in fact, it says happened more than once or twice. Picking up from there, the mind of the king of Aram was greatly perturbed of this. He called his officers and said to them, "Now tell me, who among us sides with the king of Israel?" Pause. In other words, he thinks one of them is a traitor. Understandably so. Picking up. Then one of his officers said, "No one, my lord king. It is Elisha, the prophet in Israel, who tells the king of Israel, the words that you speak in your bedchamber." He said, "Go and find where he is. I will send and seize him." He was told, "He is in Dothan." So he sent horses and chariots there and a great army. They came by night and surrounded the city. Pause. It's funny. The author of this story is quite humorous and using some cool, intricate wordplay. Right? He presumes that Elisha won't be able to see what's taking place because they're doing it under the cover of darkness. Right? And there's more humor here too because of what happens next. When an attendant of the man of God rose early in the morning and went out, an army with horses and chariots was all around the city. His servant said, "Alas, master." Ooh, an echo from earlier in this chapter, right? The other story. "What shall we do?" He replied, "Do not be afraid, for there are more with us than there are with them." Then Elisha prayed, "Oh Yahweh, please open his eyes that he may see." So Yahweh opened the eyes of the servant, and he saw. The mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. So pause. So already we're seeing this intricate play, this idea of seeing and not seeing. And Elisha, they thought that Elisha wouldn't be able to see or know what's taking place because it was dark. Here in the daytime, the servant can't see. So Elisha has God open his eyes to see. Now, what happens next, right? Verse 18. When the Arameans came down against him, Elisha prayed to Yahweh and said, "Strike this people, please, with blindness." So he struck them with blindness as Elisha had asked. Pause. I'll just keep going. Elisha said to them, "This is not the way, and this is not the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the man whom you seek." And he led them to Samaria. As soon as they entered Samaria, Elisha said, "Oh Yahweh, open the eyes of these men so that they may see." Yahweh opened their eyes, and they saw that they were inside Samaria. When the king of Israel saw them, he said to Elisha, "Father, shall I kill them? Shall I kill them?" He answered, "No." "Did you capture with your sword and your bow those whom you want to kill? Set food and water before them so that they may eat and drink, and let them go to their master." So he prepared for them a great feast. After they ate and drank, he sent them on their way, and they went to their master. And the Arameans no longer came raiding into the land of Israel. Pause. So you got that wordplay, right? The back and forth between seeing and not seeing, and darkness and light. Because where it says in the NRSV that strike them with blindness, and the NIV uses the same word. Perhaps a better translation, more literal, is a blinding light. Strike them with a blinding light. Now, notice the troops weren't completely blinded. They were stunned, perhaps, and partially blinded, so they couldn't see clearly, but they could see well enough to be led away from Dothan. So the idea of this blinding light, this great brightness, brilliance, is another way of talking about it. This dazzling brilliance, dazzling brightness, stunned them. overpowered their eyes to an extent, we might say, right? Limited their vision. So it's pretty cool interplay of words. Now, when they get to Samaria, God clears their eyes so they could see where they're at, and they're inside the city, not just brought to the city, but they're inside the city, and the king of Israel wants to kill them all, right? But Elisha says, you didn't capture them. This has nothing to do with your military might, so you don't have the right to kill them. God brought them here for you. God led them here. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to feed them. You're going to live by the rules. You're going to show them hospitality and then send them on their way. Actually, is there anything more insulting, anything more demeaning to a captured army than to be fed and watered and then sent away? Almost as if they didn't mean anything. Like, we're not afraid of your arms or anything. Just here's some food and go, which he does. And the Arameans no longer came raiding into the land of Israel. All right. Now, very first words in the next verse, sometime later. How long? We don't know. Presumably more than just a couple weeks or months or something like that, right? Might even be a new king of Aram, because notice in this last section that we read, there the king is not mentioned. Here, however, the king is mentioned by name. They want to be specific about who this one is. And there were, I'll get ahead of myself, but that's okay, is King Ben-Hadad. There were actually, I think, 9 kings of Aram that had that name. And this one is probably King Ben-Hadad, son of Hazael, I believe was his father's name, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was his name. Yes, Hazael. He's the son of Hazael. Not that that matters, but that gives us a time, okay? If it was that king, which scholars kind of agree on, at least mostly agree, based on how strong Aram seems to be and how weak Israel seems to be, is at least one of the reasons why they would think that the story is about this particular king, Ben-Hadad, son of Hazael, which puts him and puts this at the end of the 9th century and the beginning of the 8th century. So think like somewhere between 805 BCE and 790 BCE, plus or minus a couple years. But that would be the overlap between the 9th and the 8th century. Remember, 9th century would be the 800s, and the 8th century would be the 700s. And we're moving backwards in numbers as we move ahead in time. So it's somewhere around 800 plus or minus BCE. All right, so picking up from there. Sometime later, King Ben-Hadad of Aram mustered his entire army. He marched against Samaria and laid siege to it. As the siege continued, famine in Samaria became so great that a donkey's head was sold for 8 shekels of silver, and 1/4 of a cob of dove's dung for 5 shekels of silver. Now, as the king of Israel was walking on the city wall, a woman cried out to him, "Help, my lord king." He said, "No, let Yahweh help you." "How can I help you? From the threshing floor or from the winepress?" But then the king asked her, "What is your complaint?" She answered, "This woman said to me, 'Give up your son. We will eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow.' So we cooked my son and ate him. The next day I said to her, 'Give up your son, and we will eat him.' But she has hidden her son." When the king heard the words of the woman, he tore his clothes. Now, since he was walking on the city wall, the people could see that he had sackcloth on his body underneath. And he said, so may God do to me and more if the head of Elisha, son of Shaphat, stays on his shoulders today. Pause. Wow. Okay. Oh, sorry, itchy nose. Time has gone by. Possibly a new king is there, doesn't remember what happened, those kind of things. They've laid siege to Samaria, the capital of Israel. And we're not told how long it is, but long enough that famine is definitely taken place. People are dying from hunger. The price of food is skyrocketing. You think inflation has been bad the last year or so? My gosh, no. So much so that a donkey's head, which you can't think has all that much in it worth eating and doesn't even sound very appetizing, probably wasn't even then because of the way this is written. But that's sold for 80 shekels of silver and worth 1/4 of a cob of dove's dung, sold for 5 shekels of silver, which sounds disgusting, right? The NRSV translates it literally as dove's dung. The NIV translates it as something else, a cob of seed pods. There is evidence that a dove's dung, although literally that's what the word means, that it actually meant this knockoff seed of a carob that didn't taste good and wasn't very useful for much of anything. But even that sold for 5 shekels. And what's 1/4 of a cob? 1/4 of a cob is about a half a pint of this tiny seed that you really can't do much with. It doesn't taste good. But even that was selling for an outrageous price. Now, in it, we have the story of the king is up on the wall. There's a parapet. There's a place to walk around up top. Not a pyramid, a parapet. There's a walkway on top of the wall. And the king's up there, meaning people can see him. Everybody can see him. And a woman cries out, wanting help. He says, ironically, right? Ironically or unknowingly, he actually sends her to get help from the only one who can help them, Yahweh. He says, what can I do? He said, the wording might be a little odd because it says from the threshing floor or from the wine press. We might say, I can't help you from the threshing floor or the wine press, right? Is kind of what he's saying there. From the threshing floor or from the wine press, I can't help you. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. But he does relent. He's king. He's supposed to listen to the complaints of the people, right? And so he does listen. He says, fine, what's your complaint? What's your complaint? She gives a story. Now, this story, at least initially, has echoes back to the famous story of when Solomon was king, and the 2 women came before him with 1 baby. And they tell that story about, oh, we both had children, but she rolled over on hers during the night, and then she switched the babies and took mine and put her dead child next to me, right? And Solomon says, well, give me a sword, take a sword and cut the baby in half, give half to each. The mother, the real mother of the child, says, oh gosh, no, don't do that. Fine, give him to her, let the child live, right? And Solomon knows then who the mother was. So the story starts off very similar, right? 2 women both have a child, and one dies, although willingly, right? So this is kind of where the comparison ends. We see the story taking a dark turn, a wrong turn compared to the way that the story of Solomon went. We see it taking this turn right after that. Okay, we got 2 women with 2 children each. Let's agree to kill one of them, right, for now, and kill the other one later. So right off the bat, the story's taking this dark turn. The woman agrees. They kill her son. They eat him. The next day, when it's time for the other one to die, the mother has him hid. Notice the first mother, the mother of the child who has been killed. Her complaint, her anger, she's not expressing remorse. She's not expressing shame over her guilt. She's not expressing any of that. Her only anger is that she is not able to eat the other child because it's been taken away and hidden. So the darkness deepens. The darkness deepens. Not only is cannibalism arising in this community, and presumably more than just these two people, it's probably taking place much wider than that. We've seen it. We see it happen in the Bible. We also see it when there are sieges. We also see it in extra biblical documents, places outside of the Bible from the time when there were sieges, similar things happening. So we see that darkness. But not only is that happening, it's the callousness, the hardening of the hearts of the people. This woman doesn't regret having killed her son. She's only upset that I'm not going to be able to eat this child today. The king expresses his sorrow at what he is witnessing and seeing and tears his clothes. Not only is he, and when he does that, it's revealed that he's wearing sackcloth underneath, another sign of sorrow and a sign of repentance. A sign of repentance. So it's showing that the king is experiencing sorrow and wants to repent from anything that might have happened to lead us to this place. And he says, so may God do to me and more. We don't really know what that means, but it's some sort of an oath that's used from time to time. The NIV says, may God deal with me, be it ever so severely, which is okay, but may God do to me and more is more literal to what the oath was. But again, we don't know what it means exactly. They might have been doing some sort of a gesture. Presumably the first hearers of this story would know what was taking place. If the head of Elisha, son of Shaphat, stays on his shoulders today. So he's blaming Elisha. And he might be doing so for a couple different reasons. One, for not letting him kill the Aramean army when we had them here and had the chance. That's one. Two, for not doing another miracle. We know that you've done miracles, that you've provided food for people, that you've done great things. Hey, how about acting on our behalf right now? Get us some food or get rid of this army, right? So he blames them for all that. Picking up from there. So he dispatched a man from his presence, sent a messenger. Now Elisha was sitting in his house, and the elders were sitting with him. Before the messenger arrived, Elisha said to the elders, are you aware that this murderer has sent someone to take off my head? When the messenger comes, see that you shut the door and hold it closed against him. Is not the sound of his master's feet behind him? While he was still speaking with them, the king came down to him and said, this trouble is from Yahweh. Why should I hope in Yahweh any longer? Pause. Okay, so now, and that's where they end chapter 6, which is a horrible place because it's smack dab in the middle of this encounter, right? Confusing couple verses the way it's written in Hebrew, and we're talking the messenger, the king, what's going on. We're not specifically told what the messenger is supposed to be do. Who this man? He says, so he dispatched a man from his presence. Now Elisha uses the word messenger, but that's not what it says. So is it a messenger? Is it a jailer? Is it an assassin to kill him? Presumably messenger, based on the context and the rest of it, at least the way it's translated. Messenger is the best use of it. But the king is apparently, and again, it's confusing because of how it's written. And one place it says king, but it could also be translated messenger. In Hebrew, it is messenger. Verse 33, while he was still speaking with them, the king, messenger, came down to him and said this. But the king apparently is right behind the messenger, just as Elisha said. But there's humor in this too. Elisha is meeting with the elders, right? Old people the old men of the community, and he's going to have them hold the door to prevent this the presumably young messenger, who's probably not coming alone, to prevent him from entering the room. Which is almost farcical in nature, and you can picture that, right? So either the messenger or the king says, the trouble is from Yahweh. Why should I hope in Yahweh anymore? Picking up from there, because we're still in the same story, even if it's a different chapter. But Elisha said, hear the word of Yahweh. Thus says Yahweh, tomorrow, about this time, a measure of choice meal shall be sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel at the gate of Samaria. Then the captain, on whose hand the king leaned, said to the man of God, even if Yahweh were to make windows in the sky, could such a thing happen? But he said, you shall see it with your own eyes, but you shall not eat from it. Pause. So the king doesn't react to Elisha. Elisha makes this prediction of everything's going to be fine, like this time tomorrow. Basically a standard prophetic declaration. The king doesn't respond to it, but the officer, the man that he's leaning against, does. He speaks up. Pretty bold of him to speak up, but he does. And he can't believe it. He can't believe it. Even if God were to open the windows in the sky, could this happen? He's thinking of only about a natural progression, right? It would take too much time. It can't happen by tomorrow. Well, yes, it can. And you're going to see it happen, but you're not going to be able to eat from it. You're not going to be able to eat from it. Continuing chapter 7, and I might just read the whole thing. Now there were 4 leprous men outside the city gate who said to one another, why should we sit here until we die? If we say, let us enter the city, the famine is in the city, and we shall die there. But if we sit here, we shall also die. Therefore, let us desert to the Aramean camp. If they spare our lives, we shall live. And if they kill us, we shall but die. Pause. So like a hopeless situation, right? We can sit here and die. We can go inside and die because there's a famine. We could go to the Aramean camp and they could kill us. What's the difference? Let's try that. At least that way we have a chance. So they rose at twilight to go to the Aramean camp. But when they came to the edge of the Aramean camp, there was no one there at all. For the Lord had caused the Aramean army to hear the sound of chariots and of horses, the sound of a great army, so that they said to one another, the king of Israel has hired the kings of the Hittites and the kings of Egypt to fight against us. So they fled away in the twilight and abandoned their tents, their horses, and their donkeys, leaving the camp just as it was, and fled for their lives. When these leprous men had come to the edge of the camp, they went into a tent, ate and drank, carried off silver, gold, and clothing, and went and hid them. Then they came back, entered another tent, carried off things from it, and went and hid them. Then they said to one another, what we are doing is wrong. This is a day of good news. If we are silent and wait until the morning light, we will be found guilty. Therefore, let us go and tell the king's household. So they came and called to the gatekeepers of the city and told them, we went to the Aramean camp, but there was no one to be seen or heard there, nothing but the horses tied and the donkeys tied and the tents as they were. Then the gatekeepers called out and proclaimed it to the king's household. The king got up in the night and said to his servants, I will tell you what the Arameans have prepared against us. They know that we are starving, so they have left the camp to hide themselves in the open country, thinking, when they come out of the city, we shall take them alive and get into the city. One of the servants said, let some men take 5 of the remaining horses, since those left here will suffer the fate of the whole multitude of Israel that have already perished. Let us send and find out. Wise men. So they took 2 mounted men, and the king sent them after the Aramean army, said, "Go and find out." So they went after them as far as the Jordan. The whole way was littered with garments and equipment that the Arameans had thrown away in their haste. So the messengers returned and told the king. Then the people went out and plundered the camp of the Arameans. So a measure of choice meal was sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel, according to the word of Yahweh. Now the king had appointed the captain on whose hand he leaned to have charge of the gate. The people trampled him to death in the gate, just as the man of God had said when the king came down to him. For when the man of God had said to the king, 2 measures of barley shall be sold for a shekel, and a measure of choice meal for a shekel, about this time tomorrow in the gate of Samaria. The captain had answered the man of God, even if Yahweh were to make windows in the sky, could such a thing happen? And he had answered, you shall see it with your own eyes, but you shall not eat from it. It did indeed happen to him. The people trampled him to death in the gate. End of chapter 7. Woo! Not much to really say about that one. Fairly all self-explanatory there. The prophecy that Elisha had made came true. The people were saved. The people were saved. All right, my friends, that's it for today. And again, we're not meeting Thursday because it's Thanksgiving. So have a happy Thanksgiving. Join us for worship on Sunday, 8:15 or 10:45 in person, 10:45 live stream. Join us for the movie at 3 o'clock, live stream only. And we will be back for another episode of PB Reads the Bible, another chance to gather together 1 week from today, November 28th. So my friends, I pray that today has been beneficial for you. Thank you for joining me. Hopefully you learned something or relearned something, that God has spoken to you in some way. As you go about your days, not just today, but every day, keep those eyes and ears open to everything that our living, loving, active God is doing in your life and in the lives of those around you. When you see it, when you hear it, say, thank you, God, and then tell somebody about it. Until we meet again, my friends, be blessed. Be blessed. Bye.